Hey, Hello, and thank you for joining us for Facebook Live. We're looking forward to sharing this time with you. My partner in crime is going to join us in just a couple of minutes, but you're here, I'm here, we're going to get started. So I want to start off with giving you an overview of what we're going to cover tonight. There's 4 basic things we're going to do. And Brian, will you put up that first slide of the big picture? There's we believe that there's many fundamentals of success in love, marriage, and life. And there's 3 core ones that we're going to cover over the next 3 weeks. We're going to cover one tonight, and we're going to cover another one next week, and then the third one the following week. And we think that they're so important, we want to make sure that we focus on them one by one. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Then we're going to take your questions depending on the time. There's one question that we received today that really fits what we're focusing on tonight. So we're going to be sure to answer that one. And after we share the information about the fundamental, then Jesse's going to take you through a guided imagery to support you to apply this process that we use for ourselves. So you'll probably know more about us than you want to know in terms of the next 3 weeks. But the reason why we're sharing that is because we want to share how we got to where we are. Because what we know is that relationships go through very predictable stages. That's the theory that we learned, and it's also an experience that we've had. So when we take you through our story and share with you what we did to get on track to get to stage 3, we want to give you an opportunity today, next time, and the following week, and actually as many times as we can during our Facebook Lives, for you to have a personal taste of what it is that we tried that worked for us. And then in the end, we're going to invite more complimentary consultations. We're doing 5 weeks, so we have some left, some people who inquired for last week that we weren't able to complete. So you're first for this coming week. So we're going to share that as well. Okay, so Brian, we're at our story. So in terms of the stages, I'm looking to my left because Jesse's joining us. So here's what I want you to know about our story, and we're both going to share about our experience. It's very interesting to me that many times the people thought that we had it all together probably in the beginning. Actually, we thought we had it all together in the beginning because we did all this personal work and we did all this spiritual work like a whole year before we became a couple. And so we thought, unbeknownst to us, we thought that we had this in the bag. I mean, we both were, what would you say? We both had gotten through the trauma of a first marriage. Mine was very, very, very brief, but still it was traumatic. So we thought we learned what it takes to turn this around. What we didn't know was that what we were thinking consciously was not the complete picture in terms of what was going on unconsciously. And so we went through this wonderful romantic stage. First, Jesse, the two of us, And then Jesse had two sons from his previous marriage that he had custody of. So, we all blended together as friends and what have you. And then when we decided to get married, then we became a family. So so we had a honeymoon stage for all four of us, for the two of us and for the two of us and Paul and Brian. It was wonderful. I mean, it was fantastic. Now, at that time, they were living together and I was living by myself. So then we moved under the same roof. Oh my goodness. And I'm going to give you the cliff notes. We have a fuller description of that whole thing in our book that we wrote years ago. But anyway, so we all got under the same roof and things kind of changed. And we still did enjoy each other. We still loved each other.
No question.
But these four personalities under the same roof and these two different ways of living lifestyle, it was really different. Now, the three of them, they were accustomed to a certain way of being together under the same roof. Mine was totally different. So anyway, so we'll tell you more about that in another time. But for the two of us, some strange things started happening. Like all of the things that I really adored about Jesse, well, a couple of them started getting on my nerves because, like, one of the things that I loved about him was that he's very thoughtful. He's calm, and he's very observant, supportive, and what have you. So all of that was fine until it was time to make a decision about something or take action on something. Well, my personality is the kind of personality like I like to take action. Like when we make a decision, I'm ready to go right then. So Jesse's taking his time to be thoughtful about it. What I loved in the beginning really got on my nerves because it slowed me down, right? So we would argue. So that was my part. What was yours?
Well, mine was that you were moving a lot faster than I was accustomed to. And so you were not giving me the time I needed in order to think through and look at all the various actions or dimensions of something. One example I gave is buying a car. So let's say we decide we want to go buy a car. And so your immediate thing is, I see this car, it's pretty, it's luxurious, I love being in it. I can imagine myself having other people see me in the car. And that was your thing. I mean, you were ready to go.
Yeah.
Now for me, I'm saying, well, wait a minute, I don't know that much about this vehicle. Like, what kind of gas mileage does it give? What kind of repair record does it provide? I want to make sure that whatever we invest our money in is a good investment. And because one of the things that I could imagine, which was horrible for me, I could see you in this beautiful car that you enjoy being in. I can see you out on the middle of the freeway with the car broke down and you needing some help in terms of how to get home. So anyway.
So we would argue. We would argue about things like that, these different styles. And what happened was we thought we were arguing maybe about the car, the conflict between I want and Pretty. He wanted to make sure we had all the details, which slowed the process down in getting a car. So we thought it would be something like that. But what we discovered, it was about something deeper. It was like the tip of the iceberg of something deeper. And what was happening for us and what we have found happens with other couples, by the way, that is the clue that you're in stage 2. Stage 1 is romantic love. Stage 2 is reality love. And so what we discovered was what was happening between the two of us in that moment and any other time that we had a difference of opinion or had an argument was that we were feeling disconnected. And so the disconnect was fueled by anytime we were in conflict, if we kept going back and forth about who was right, who was wrong, if there was any criticism, if there was any finger pointing or that kind of thing. So that made things worse.
Mhm.
And we were wounding each other in the process. So we, with all of this training and all this life experience, we discovered that that was what the problem was. And the reason why it was a problem was because we were not feeling safe with each other. The first fundamental that we want to share with you tonight and take you through an experience to tap into that for yourselves.
I also want to point out that there was never ever a question as to whether or not we loved each
Right.
other. That Melva and I loved each other deeply. The boys made it very clear how they felt about her and that they loved her as well. And as a consequence, it's not just the love part of it, it's the ability to be able to work through differences without arguing and fighting and that sort of thing.
Right, right. And so we had, well, after we, because there are things that all of us don't know that we don't know that we don't know. And, in the moment, when emotions are flooding, we don't know that we're both fueling pain on each other through how we approach conflict and differences of opinion.
Right.
So what happened was when we discovered what was going on, we made a decision. And so our decision was to become a source of safety. Now we have these beatitudes that we are sharing every day on social media and also in our private Facebook group. And 3 of those beatitudes we're going to be sharing today in the next 2 weeks. I mean, we're going to have 365. I think we're on 191 now. So being a source of safety is very, very important.
Absolutely.
And we had to decide, next slide, Brian, we had to decide that that is what we were going to do. I mean, it would have been wonderful if Jesse would just go with the pretty car. And if it would have been wonderful for Jesse if I would just let him take his time to go through all the details. But since we were caught in our own position of what we thought was right or wrong, good or bad, or convenient, we got stuck. So we said, wait a minute. So when we are having an argument, we are definitely not being a source of safety for each other. Now, what we had to say and what we wanted was very valid, but we needed to have a way to communicate that to each other without arguing. So we decided that both of us were going to take responsibility for showing up differently. Now, it would have been easier for us to just keep that finger pointing and, insisting that the other person change. But we knew that wasn't going to work. And plus, we didn't really, I mean, it wasn't our first choice to take these steps that were going to help us to advance forward. But we didn't like the consequences if we didn't do it. So we want to share with you 5 things that we did. So we made the decision, and this is what our steps included. So decision number 1, Brian. The first decision was that we resolved to become a source of safety. Oh, I have 2 N's in there. Okay. We resolved to become a source of safety in love, marriage, and life. So not just with each other, which was important in the foundation, but also in other areas of our lives. So what that meant was we decided not to show up negative, to show up more positive than negative. I mean, you have frustrations in life. And so approaching frustrations in a positive way is paramount, I believe.
Yes.
So that's the first thing we decided. So Jesse, what was the second thing that we decided? Next slide, Brian.
Okay. How we became a source of safety for ourselves and each other. First, we resolved to be a source of safety. And then secondly, we both decided to create a safe space within to retreat from the heat of the moment when flooded with negative feelings.
Yeah. And that was so important because you can't really have a conversation when you're a logical conversation, a kind conversation when you're flooded with emotions, because your brain is wired to go into survival mode and react and survive, So that led to our the third step of what we decided, the third thing that we decided. And what was that, Brian? So the third thing we decided was to set a positive intention to be a source of safety. I mean, we actually conscientiously intended and decided that we were going to become a source of safety, meaning we decided that we were going to come out of this reflection space from a positive space.
Right.
With intention of inviting the responses that we wanted. Now, we were trying to have the results that we wanted, but we were doing it in terms of being in survival mode and trying to be right, finger pointing. Maybe a little criticism was coming up a little bit along the way as well. So that was the third thing. The fourth thing, Brian. So what did we figure out, Jesse?
Okay. Fourth, we figured out how to invite that response in a loving, caring, and kind way when we re-engaged.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had to think it through. I mean, you had to think about, okay, so what is it that I really, really want? So it took a minute to like peel away all the layers of all those feelings and all of those thoughts, because when you're in survival mode, that survival part of the brain thinks of catastrophe and thinks about the worst possible motive of the other person, which is not true. They're in survival mode too. They're trying to, survive the pain of the disconnection. So both people are trying to do the same thing. And then the fifth thing that we did was in terms of what we decided. So is that yours or mine?
It's yours, but
okay.
But go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the fifth thing was we rehearsed our new message and noticed what it felt like to bring to being a source of safety, a critical part of our best self to the table.
Actually, I was supposed to say to the table. That's my typo. So yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, that means we had to think about it. Had to think about it over and over. Now, what do you think happens if you're flooded with a whole lot of emotions? You're in the midst of an argument, and you're in emotional pain, because that's what's happening. So when you go through like steps like that, first of all, you interrupt the argument. You also interrupt the pattern when you go within and reflect. And it could be these 5 steps. It could be or any other steps of your choosing, as long as you get out of that process of those heated moments, and inflicting pain on each other, not because you're trying, but because that's what happens in terms of how we wired. And interrupt the pattern and introduce something new, which is what we're going to invite you to do. We want you to have the experience of a taste of what this is like. So we're going to take you, Jesse's going to take you through a guided imagery so that you can have a taste of what we tried.
Okay.
So hold on just a second. And here we go.
We'd like to begin with a brief meditation by closing your eyes and taking 3 deep breaths. The first step is to take and create a safe place to tap into the qualities and characteristics you already have within. So what does that safe space look like and feel like? Take a moment to describe it to yourself and allow yourself to be there and life that is mildly frustrating for you. And see that person now in front of you. Think of a mild frustration from them that triggered negative feelings and thoughts within you. Now, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. You have now created a vacuum in that space between how this person frustrated you and how you can choose to respond more effectively is a source of safety. Now think of three possible ways to respond to this person who has frustrated you by asking for what you want to repair the rupture between you and them. Give yourself a few moments to think about what you want to invite. Remind yourself that you are a choice to stay stuck or to do something different that supports the experience you want by showing up as a source of safety. Take 3 more deep breaths and open your eyes.
Okay. So Jesse, Brian is looking at to see if there's any responses. Curious about what that was like for you in doing the guided imagery. So let me just share the question that we received, because it was very timely for what it is that we are doing tonight. So just give me a second. I had it in my hand. All right. So the question was, how can one stop reacting and more calmly respond to a potential stressful situation? And so the steps that we were talking about, and before, I think the first step is making a decision, because just know in advance that when two people are vulnerable in important relationships, and people can stand a step on a landmine in terms of where another person is vulnerable without even knowing it. And even if they've stepped on that same landmine over and over again, the person who is having the experience sometimes believes that the person is doing it on purpose. And actually, that's not always the case, because when we're programmed to see the world a certain way or to cope and show up in life in a certain way, we don't always know our impact, whether it's innocent or deliberate. And so to take into consideration that this is going to happen, there's going to be times when things go awry, to make a decision to say, we can continue to do what we're doing and stay in trouble with each other and stay disconnected and feel that pain, or we can do something to interrupt the pattern. So, because anything that we do over and over again becomes a pattern and becomes a habit and becomes a bad habit. We all have them, but we need to know what they are so that we can consciously decide to do something different.
Absolutely. And I just want to emphasize that this is a conscious decision that you're making. This is not just something that you think of in the middle of the night, even though it may come that way. But to make a conscious decision that I'm going to do something different to bring about a different outcome for the two of us is what's crucially important. And you're not going to do that necessarily until you decide that that's what you want to do, and that's the outcome you want.
Yeah. And the action steps really support self-care. The 5 steps that we came up with for ourselves, they were really steps to nurture us and to honor what we were feeling and thinking. Even if the thoughts and the feelings were negative, it's important to honor them and to say, yes, this is what I'm feeling. and to just peel away all the layers of what you are experiencing until you get to the layer that says, this is what I want. This is what I wanted during the argument, but in the moment, I didn't have the language. I couldn't figure out what it was to say. And I remember during our early days, one of my irritations was I would get frustrated with Jesse, and he would ask me, well, what do you want? Well, since I wasn't accustomed to having what I wanted, I didn't know what it was. And I was irritated with him because he didn't know. So, and maybe that's me, it was just me, he just wanted peace. He just wanted us to get along, but I later discovered that what I wanted the most was for him to hear me out, no matter what I was feeling and thinking, to just hear my experience and understand it. And we'll be going more into that for next time, because we may as well tell all three parts of our story that relates to the three fundamentals that we're going to be sharing over the next couple of weeks. Tonight and the next couple of weeks. Okay, so now, the next thing that we want to offer you is an opportunity for complimentary consultation. So yep. I know we're giving you tools that we've used and gave you a taste of the experience during the guided imagery. We'd like to support you to take it a step further with a private consultation with both of us. And the link to setting up a schedule, an appointment for that, is at our jesseandmelva.com/contact-2 website. And all you have to do is put in your name and your name, email address, and then let us know that you want to set up a consultation. And we will do that, because we would like to support you to be able to use the tools that we share. And we know that information is not enough. Having the experience and following through with the information, that's what makes the difference. Now, we're on a mission, and our mission is to support as many people in relationship, and people are in relationships, all different kinds of relationships. Your relationships at home, your relationships with your spouse, your relationship with your friends, your relationships with with the people at work. And it's so important to be aware of what kind of person who is representing you is showing up, and to make sure that you do everything in your power to know that it's your best self. But sometimes when you're in pain, that best self is just not available to you. So those private consultations, we will be supporting people to get in touch with what is trying to evolve during the arguments, because the arguments are the tip of the iceberg of something deeper, and that is to heal a ruptured connection and to restore a loving one with kindness, with love and respect. And so
before we leave that, we need to share with people how many of those complimentary consultations we'll be offering.
5 a week.
Right.
For the next few weeks. Right. Yeah. And we're also developing our coaching program for couples that will be coming up in a few weeks. We'll be telling you more about it as we go along. So with that in mind, we want to thank you for joining us.
Hey.
I enjoyed being here with you, and
so did I.
Being here with you in terms of doing this together, So until next time, Jesse and Melva signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.